the truth. Don't hide it. Why you smiling? It's annoying. What you faking? Come and show it.
Before I start, I just want to recap on the fourth video that I made and make a few corrections. That being that I quoted equality as one of the school values when it's in actual fact equity. Also in my fourth video, I referred to you looking at the third video and it was actually in fact the second video. I want to now play you a clip from the fourth video about a meeting my son had. However, on the 22nd of January 2026, when my son was in my care, it came to my attention that my son was called into a meeting by Miss Morgan, where there was also an unidentified person present, whom my son did not know, and he was interviewed and told to write down his notes of the meeting and put his name in the signature box, with Miss Morgan claiming, "So we don't get anything wrong." I do not understand why my son was asked to write his notes in the meeting and sign them. Surely this should have been conducted by two adults present. Also, my son said to Miss Morgan about another child telling my son's friend to kill himself, and said, "I spoke to Miss Morgan about this, and she basically ignored it and said not to get involved, so he didn't write it in his statement." This is a significant safeguarding concern that my son was told to ignore. This is probably the reasons for the recording in the first place by his friend who was punished for this. And the reason why my son was spoken to was because of his involvement, given the school's behaviour policy and documents from the police stating the right to record in public, as the recording took place off school premises and at Chepstow Leisure Centre. One of the school's values is curiosity, but it seems to have its limitations, and only when it suits the school. Is there any little wonder why my son in his statement said to me, "I thought I was doing the right thing legally," after the legal letter my mum showed me about my dad, that was given to her in a meeting she had with the head teacher on the 8th of January 2026 from solicitors that my mum made me read when we got home that day. I believe this letter led to my son's pursuit of justice. So in summary, my son was lied to about a dentist appointment that never was by the school on the 29th of November 2024, was told lies by his mum, who blamed the school for those lies, as evidence from my third video. In this video, my son was shown a legal letter with spurious, unproven, and untrue allegations of his dad's wrongdoings and the injustice that his dad been served. And the school are wondering why he has decided to go down the path of what he considers to be legally helping his friend. So this is his original statement from that meeting, and you can pause to read this. My son also made another statement as he was given a lunchtime detention for this meeting. Not at any point was my son told that there would be any further action. I'm now going to read you that statement. On Monday, the 26th of January at form time, Miss L. Lane came and spoke to me. Miss L. Lane took me out of our form class into an empty classroom and spoke about the meeting with Miss Morgan and I. That happened on the 22nd of January 2026 with an unknown man who said he was an ALN teacher who I have not seen since in the school. Just to note, my son has seen the ALN teacher since writing this statement. Miss L. Lane said it's either going to be an in-school detention or after-school detention. I think Miss Lane said Miss Morgan wouldn't be in school until Wednesday the 28th of January 2026. Miss Morgan was in on Tuesday the 27th of January 2026, and I said to Miss Morgan, I think it was at break time on Tuesday when I asked this, please could I have an in-school detention and not an after-school detention? And Miss Morgan said yes, today at lunch. I asked whether it would be a full lunchtime detention and Miss Morgan said yes. This was when Miss Morgan spoke to me about undermining the teachers. This was for giving my friend the school behavioural policy and the right to record in public from Avon and Somerset Police information from ChatGPT. I went straight to my detention at lunchtime and Mr. McGrath said, "Have I had lunch?" And I said no. And Mr. McGrath took me to get lunch and we went back to MA4 where the detention was held. And I ate my lunch there, and Mr. McGrath let me go 5 minutes early, so my detention was 45 minutes. This is my honest and true statement. So as you may or may not be aware, I was not made aware of this meeting or of the detention that followed. So let's take a look at the behavioural and learning policy for Chepstow School. If you go on Governance and Policies on Chepstow School's website and select Behavioural Learning Policy, you'll be given the option to either read it or download it. And if you click on the three dots in the top right-hand corner, you can click onto Document Properties to find out who last updated the policy and who was the author, which was Lisa Jane Lane on the 5th of June 2025. The Chepstow School Behaviour for Learning Policy was approved by the full governing body. On page 7 of this policy, Recording Behaviour, the school operates a computer-based behavioural management system through SIMS and class charts. Hold that thought. All staff have access to both systems via their laptops. All instance positive and negative points, action taken, and any follow-ups must be recorded into this system. Lisa Lane, the author of this policy, took my son out of form class into an empty room and spoke about the meeting with Miss Morgan that happened on the 22nd of January to inform my son that he would be in a school detention or after school detention without any prior warning given in the meeting, and against those very policies which she is the author of and should know better. So stage 1 was not followed, and the examples of behaviour is after one warning, and that should have been the responsibility and action of either the class teacher or the tutor. Also to note, there are examples of behaviours that have been duplicated by the Deputy Head, Lisa Jane Lane, who is the author of this policy, and this was approved by the governors, the full governing body, should I say, on the 12th of June 2025. Stage 2 was irrelevant because nothing had been sanctioned twice. In any case, this would have been the responsibility and action of the curriculum lead, who would, if it was in this case, be able to authorise a 30-plus minute detention for lunch. The only time the head of year should get involved is in stage 3, and that's for escalated behaviours. And do not understand why Lisa Jane Lane needed to get involved at all. These are not my words, but the words of a policy that was authored and updated by Lisa Jane Lane. Bad practices start by ignoring policy. This is a perfect example of where policy was not followed. Which brings me to page 7, recording behaviour, and a failure to record this on class charts and conceal this from the other parents and their wrongdoings. As you can see from my son's class charts, 2 detentions were issued, one for the 3rd of February, one for the 2nd of February. I am not saying that my son should not be subject to the behaviour and learning policy. If there are rules to be followed, then they must be followed, but they also must be followed by the teachers. And that's where the school values of equity come into play. And I have to give credit to those teachers who did follow the behaviour for learning policy. My son's last detention recorded was on the 15th of January 2026. There were no recorded entries on class charts for the meeting on the 22nd of January. Neither was there any recorded entry for the full lunchtime detention issued by the head of year, Miss Gwen Morgan. You'll have to excuse the poor quality of the class chart slides, but these will be in the evidence folder, MCC and school breaches, in the G Drive link at the end. This type of abuse of the behaviour for learning policy is unacceptable from the leadership team under Kelly Ann Wave, the head teacher for Chepstow School. And I'm sure MCC need to have a conversation with the leadership team and put a stop to this immediately. This was complete overreach and a punishment, a punitive measure for my son, who thought he was doing the best by his friend and telling the truth, and he was punished for it. This is emotional abuse and parent alienization for deliberate falsehoods in operating clandestine procedures to subterfuge their punishments against their very own policies. Is there any wonder why there's a serious school safeguarding scandal in Chepstow School? And you can understand why I have absolutely no confidence in the school whatsoever at all. The Chepstow School Behaviour for Learning policy should be make it up as you go along policy, approved by the Chair of Governors Keith Dunn OBE and Vice Chair of Governors Jonathan Keohane. And if by their policies was the equivalent of a sandwich competition, this would be the end result.